with 1 week left of the URC. It was a hell of a week down in South Africa last weekend. Join us where we discuss all of last week, all of next week, all of the PRA, and anything else that we can be bothered with. Let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to this week's WRRAP podcast with me, Lee G. Joining me as always, Jamie and Harley. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
So for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll notice two pretty faces down the bottom of the screen there. So Jack Ospreys sitting in for Nick Ospreys, who is currently under arrest for his luminous budgie smugglers at the game on Saturday. I've been assured of that. Evening, Jack. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, doing well. Yep.
Good to have you back again. And over in the other corner is John. Now, John may well be taking over from me next year as the mouth of the Scarlets. So, John, just give us a quick rundown of who you are and why you love the Scarlets, mate.
Well, I'm John. Fell into the Scarlets really when we moved into the area 20 odd years ago now. And they were the first team I actually saw when we moved into Wales. And they play with heart, they play with passion. And as Ray Gravel used to say, West is best. Got to stick with it. And then having a 14-year-old that's just sort of really got into rugby, could have been worse, could have got into football, but getting to enjoy it through a sort of 14-year-old's eyes as well, sort of getting to relive the youth. So heightens your enjoyment of the game, I think.
See, I like him already, boys. I like him. That's good. Right, we have got a ton of stuff to be getting on with tonight, but I'm the Ospreys fans that follow us regular will be delighted when I say that I'm going to try and stay quiet this evening. I'll just let John do all of the talking. So when we come to Scarlet stuff, John's going to take over and do all of those kind of bits and bobs. Okay, so that's the format for tonight. So, Jamie, let's crack on with News Desk, mate, because there is actually a fair bit of news on there.
There certainly is a lot of news this week. So let's start with the Scarlets then, shall we? Scrum half Dane Blacker, he's going to return to the Scarlets in the summer. He actually did all right off the bench for the Dragons on Saturday, Dane Blacker. And I was thinking, I wish we'd see more of that during your time here, Dane, but no, fair play. He is going back to the Scarlets. I think that's for the best. I think that's a good move for all parties. I guarantee that Dane Blacker will recapture the form that he had when he was previously at the Scarlets and then got called up to the Wales squad. He is a good player, but for some reason, he's just never worked out at the Dragons. So, yeah, he's returning to Park Scarlets. Well, then in other news then, Sam Costello, what a very good game against the Lions. He signed a new deal with the club. Unfortunately, though, some bad news for the Scarlets has broken today. So Gareth Davis has suffered a rib injury against the Lions and he's flying home from South Africa. Massive blow for the Scarlets, but it's a big opportunity now for guys like Archie Hughes. Time for him to step up. But yeah, that is a pretty big blow for the Scarlets. So yeah, that's the Scarlets news done for this week. And then Ospreys, scrum half Luke Davis has signed a new deal with the club. I have to say, I did love the Twin Town inspired video announcement. I don't know if any of you seen it. They recreated the ice cream van scene in Twin Town. Very, very funny. Very, very clever. And I will give a hat tip to the Ospreys. Their media team is absolutely smashing it with these video announcements. So I quite enjoyed that. And yeah, good news for the Ospreys there. And then Dragons news that's just broken before we started recording. Dragons have signed Tonga international Fine Inisi from Mona Pacifica. I've never heard of him, I'll be honest. I barely watch Super Rugby these days. But 15 caps for Tonga. He's a winger who can play outside centre. He's worked with Philo, Tia, and Dale McLeod previously. He hasn't had a lot of game time from what I can see, but then it says on the Monaco Pacifica website that Fine is a powerhouse who has grown in confidence to become a regular in Monaco Pacifica's starting lineup. So, I mean, he looks the part, but then, that's the problem with these announcement videos, these highlight videos. Any player can look world class, can't they? But he looks decent, and I know you're a big fan of his hair, Lee, isn't it? Because you've got a weird thing about his hair.
whack in the head of hair. I mean, yeah, it's worth a season ticket just to have the opportunity of watching that mullet run around every week. It's got to be worth it, man.
Yeah, the proof's in the pudding. Let's see how he gets on. But yeah, that's been announced today. In terms of Cardiff, then Harry Millard, he signed a new deal. He's been a bit of an unsung hero at the Arms Park this season. He was the leading try scorer in the URC, believe it or not, but unfortunately, he's now been taken over by Munster's Tom Farrell on 9 tries. So Millard is now joint second top try scorer, along with Johnny Matthews and Blaine Murray. And then in other news, then Gav Anscombe he's leaving Gloucester to go to Bayonne. He comes in to replace the legend that is Camilo Lopez. He's becoming quite the journeyman now, isn't he, in Anscombe? Fair play. He's had more clubs than Tiger Woods now, but we wish him all the best. And we all know that when he's fit, he's a quality player. So, yeah, that's all the news section for now. Harley, I believe you got some sad news that you want to bring us?
Yeah, so unfortunately some sad news. So it's just CF10 board member, very involved in the Cardiff there, Claire O'Shea. She passed away with the battles with cancer. She founded the Clear campaign, which is campaigning for policy change for gynecological cancers. Huge presence at both CF10 board and within the club in general. Just want to pass my condolences on behalf of myself and the rest of the Cardiff Central pod. I'm sure you won't mind me passing on our condolences to the family as well. It's just, very sad bit of news, but I thought I'd acknowledge it before we move on.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, very sad news. Condolences to the family. Right, now then, shall we talk about the big story in Welsh Rugby at the moment? The story that's driving Welsh Rugby Twitter absolutely insane over the weekend. I am talking about the PRA fallout. So PRA is the funding agreement between the union and the pro clubs, for those who might not be aware. So as we all know, the new PRA deal still hasn't been agreed and signed by all 4 teams. Because there are valid concerns around the WRU's ownership of Cardiff after it went into administration. So last week, the WRU gave Dragons, Scarlets and Ospreys a 48-hour deadline to sign a new PRA deal, or they would risk having their licenses revoked and being served a 2-year notice period. There is a concern out west that the WRU plan to turn Cardiff into a Welsh Leinster-style team. And on Friday evening, it was confirmed that Cardiff and Dragons have signed a new PRA. So it's fair to say Welsh Rugby Twitter went a bit mental with this news. Many people accusing the Dragons of caving into WRU pressure and being called scabs and all the rest of it. So as things stand then, what does this mean? This means that Cardiff and Dragons are set to start next season on the new and increased funding, while the Ospreys and Scarlets will be on the current terms, creating an east and west split. So it's not ideal at the moment, but that's where we are. So just before we quickly move on then, I did a pod last night, the Dragon Slate, and I had Dan Hallett on with me. So he is the chairman of the Dragon Supporters Club, and he's a member of the Joint Supporters Group Cymru. And I wanted to get Dan on because we've seen a lot of statements from Scarlets and Ospreys, but we haven't really heard anything from the Dragons. And I'll be honest, I'll hold my hands up. When I found out the Dragons had signed a deal, my first thought was that we had caved into WRU pressure. And I was a little disappointed that the 3 didn't stick together. So myself and Dan have been told additional information by the Dragons, and I can now say this was definitely not the case about Dragons caving into any pressure. And this was backed up by Chris Kerwin in his Argus column, who wrote, and I quote, "The Argus understands that far from being put under pressure by the first day deadline, the Dragons were content with a new deal and they were happy to sign up once a few minor concerns had been addressed." So we've been told that the owners are absolutely committed to ensuring the most successful future for the club. They know what they're doing. There's a lot of detail that's not shareable. They believe this deal provides certainty and sustainability for the Dragons. And this was backed up really with what David Buttress said on X. So a supporter had asked him, why now have the Dragons decided to sign? And he basically said several key points and clarifications that made us comfortable as an ownership to sign. Each club will have his own views and issues. I hope the others get there. I could see no maternal reason not to sign at this stage and move on in building Welsh Rugby. And then he adds, and to be fair, no one has been and is as sceptical as I am regarding WRU deals. So that gives me more, just a bit more certainty, that the Dragons do know what they're doing. And I think to sum this up, the Dragons are a business and they have to make the best decisions for their stakeholders and organisation. The Dragons' decision to sign the new PRA deal should be respected. And likewise, the Scarlets and Ospreys' decision not to sign the new deal, that should be respected too. But yeah, that's where we are with it. We'll wait and see what happens next. But so far, 2 teams are going to be on the new increased funding and the other 2 teams in the West are not. So that's where we are with it. Lee, I don't know if you want to come in on this, obviously, and give your view as a Scarlet supporter.
I was going to bring in Jack and John on this one first. So, Jack, let's get your views on this first. So obviously, Scarlets and Ospreys together, united, strong as one. What's your thoughts on it, mate?
Firstly, they both released a joint statement, which I thought was fairly level-headed and well put. And they also said they respect the Dragons' decision to sign it, and I think that's absolutely fine. It makes you wonder, really, what's being said that makes them not comfortable to sign it, but makes the Dragons comfortable to sign it. And obviously, there's lots of things we're not privy to, so it's hard to really have like a proper opinion. But if you're not comfortable with the way that information is presented, or how maybe the Welsh rugby landscape would look under the new PRA deal, it makes complete sense to not sign it. I'm more frustrated with the way the WRU's decided to handle things, with initially saying, okay, they need to sign this by a Thursday night, which came across very heavy-handed, and then a few weeks later saying, right, well, we're gonna put you on notice if you don't sign this, and then lo and behold, no one signed it, and they're still in negotiations. And so it's a bit like, well, like this idea of like going forward when they first took over, we're going to work with the regions and we're going to try and build a relationship with them and we all need to work together. And then they've come out and I said it before and I say it again, just looks like bully boy tactics to try and force people to sign something they're not happy to sign, which, isn't exactly the best look on their part. So it's hard to have a proper opinion when in terms of like what the content of the PRA deal is and what the dispute that the Scarlets and the Ospreys have exactly with it, because lots of things are said that we don't know, so we can't speculate on. But the kind of public way that this is being carried out, and it wasn't made public by the Ospreys and the Scarlets, it's been made public with the deadlines being given by the WRU, then it kind of just looks poor, and it throws regions and Welsh rugby into more dispute, which didn't necessarily have to happen.
Okay, I can't disagree with any of that. John, your opinion on it, mate?
Well, my first thought reading the statement was the obvious that, Ospreys and Scarlets are looking for clarity, which is fair enough. The speed that Cardiff seems to go into administration, then all of a sudden they're owned by WRU. And, I don't think anyone actually knows quite what's going on. And as such, I think, we've got legitimate concerns. And hopefully once they're addressed and there is a bit more information out there, then fingers crossed, we'll be good to go.
I see, for me, it's when Cardiff went into administration, right, we were told that there'd been conversations about this between Cardiff and the WRU for a while. So somebody in the WRU must have known that conversation was going on at the same time as the PRA conversation was going on. And they must have known at some point that there may be a situation where the WRU may own Cardiff and then also be in charge of the contract that they give to Cardiff to sign. Yeah, that to me, that should have been ironed out weeks ago, months ago, maybe even, depending on when they knew about what was happening with Cardiff. And you're right, Jamie, there's stuff there that we will never know, that's quite rightly, for legal reasons, is behind closed doors. And we all know that there's stuff that we'll never get the full story. And for me, the reason the Scarlets aren't signing is this thing about, is it going to be fair and balanced between all regions? Now, I can see both sides of this. It's never going to be fair. and balanced because they've had to take Cardiff out of administration. So Cardiff are starting in a much lower point, so they will get more support, if you like. But at the same time, then we're not. What's to say that Scarlets go, okay, we'll go and buy a ton of players, run ourselves into administration, so that the WRU will buy us out of, and then we'll be in a good position next season. Do you know what I mean? So I think that there's that element of. I said this to you earlier, Jamie. Just trust. I think the WRU have done a really poor job of managing trust throughout the last 12 months, probably longer in all honesty, but it feels like there's one step forward and two steps back constantly. And yeah, if it comes down to trust, right, the bit that sticks in my head is when Abby Tierney was asked, when Cardiff went into administration, and she was asked, would you do this for all clubs? Would this be an automatic yes for all clubs? And she said, well, we would treat all clubs on their own merit, something like that. Yeah, we'll basically, she didn't say, yes, this is what we'll do. We'll make sure that you don't go into administration. Yeah. She said, well, maybe not. If Scarlets or Ospreys go, we might do. We'll see how it goes then. And that for me just kind of threw up flags where lots of people were going, well, that's not very balanced. So yeah, it's just another piece of the jigsaw pulled away for me in what we're doing.
First instinct with that and it'll all be on merit is no, they wouldn't.
And that's it. That's what I mean about trust. You'd like to think that we'd be there sitting there going, yeah, the WRU will always support us, and I don't think that trust is there at the minute. So, I mean, Harley, it's not like you guys had a choice about whether you signed it or not, because the people that wrote that contract signed it on your behalf for you somehow.
Yeah, we have two directors on our board because they're still waiting to appoint because WU get to appoint the full board, and they only needed 2 signatures, so they've appointed those. Sorry, I can't remember the names after that. I just want to stop the thing. The thing Abby said in that interview, when talking about both Cardiff, the first thing she said, the first point, was about access to the Principality. Basically, if we weren't at cap, then it's a different thing. And then the other thing she referred to is because of the competition contract they have with the URC, the cost of buying out Cardiff out of their debt was much less than the fine they received for losing a team. So that, for me, says that probably they would have, at least under this current contract, they would have bought out another team. But in a few years' time, it might be a different story. Or it might be that there's too much. Like if they have to buy, say they had to buy Rodney Parade back, that could be a thing. I do agree. It's the trust side of thing is really awful, and I definitely agree with that. The way Jack and the language that WRU have been using has been really heavy-handed and unnecessary with these ultimatums, especially when they decided to not do it, because then it just shows they don't actually mean what they're saying. I mean, everyone's looking about it as Cardiff getting more, but the way this new PRA is written is the WRU are going to give a load of money, and then any deficit in the budget is covered by your benefactors. And unfortunately, so for Cardiff, WRU is their benefactor, which says to me that if anything, they're going to be telling their board to make every decision possible to minimise that loss, so they're not paying anything out. Because that's the other thing is they could run Cardiff at a much cheaper, so that they don't have to pump any more money in. But there's no guarantee of that. I'm guessing this is what the sort of clarification that Scarlets and Ospreys are wanting. So when Cardiff's first bought, Abby Tierney said they're budgeting about 1 million extra a year as an operational thing, and part of the reason they've put Cardiff into a separate company, not a subsidiary of WRU, not WRU itself, is try and avoid the entanglement that happened with the Dragons ownership. So there's going to be a lot more clarity, so you'll be able to see exactly how much WRU are given Cardiff. But I said I don't know necessarily if they basically say, oh well, if Cardiff have made a £500,000 shortfall, they can't necessarily say, right, we're going to give £500,000 to everyone else. So I don't know if that just
I mean-
means down the line they're going to claw that money back off whoever they sell the club to.
So, Jack, you were going to come in with something.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you, Ali. My apologies. It's just that that point about, well, it would cost more money to pay them out of the URC contracts than it would to bail them out. If she's saying then we're going to do it on merit, then it says that argument actually might not be true. You could look at the other way as well, of looking at it and saying, well, because everyone's thinking, you bail them out because Cardiff has to have a team, right? Capital has to have a team. So you could look at it and say, well, actually, they would be more than happy to pay the contracts to the URC if Cletley or the Ospreys went under, but they wouldn't necessarily do it for Cardiff. So it's like, it just adds more confusion to the whole thing, if that makes any sense, because you can interpret that in two ways, which is they would do it for anybody because it costs more, or they'd be more than happy to see one of the teams in West Wales go. And so there we go, because that's what, no one's really saying, but that's kind of what's been alluded to by fans. And that's kind of a feeling. So yeah, it's just a mess, isn't it, from them, because of the way that they've handled it. There we go. I don't want to go on about it too long.
It's all a mess. It's all a mess. Sorry, Willie, go on.
I've seen the same thing where people are going, this is the WRU forcing three regions, and one of them is going to be West Wales. I've seen a lot of that going around from fans, not people in boards, but that's what I'm seeing going around as well. And again, it just shows the level of trust between us. So yeah, go on, Jake.
No, I was just about to say, it is a mess, and obviously Dragons, they're in a different position to the other teams. I think people need to realise this. It's very difficult for the Dragons to take the moral high ground on this issue when they've been owned by the WRU. And we know about the problems and the complications. And Dan made a very good point last night on the Dragons Leopold when he said, if anything, now there has to be more transparency with Cardiff and the WRU, because we don't want to get into the situation with what happened with the Dragons when we was accused of all sorts, like we've still been accused of 9 million extra funding, which wasn't true. It was debunked by David Buttress, debunked by Abby Tierney, and the supporters club debunked it. It wasn't true, but it was all these accusations running around. And that's the problem when you've got 3 independent teams and 1 union-owned team. It's going to be a problem for Cardiff staying as union ownership. This is not going away yet. They will sign the deal at some point. They'll have to. Ospreys need to do it because of St. Helens. So they're vulnerable right now. So they really need to get that. That secures them. Scarlets, there's all sorts of rumours about them being in debt with the council and everything. At least with the Dragons, they are in a good position compared to the other 3 teams. They're the only team to own their own stadium. The finances are good. So for us, it makes sense to sign this deal because we had concerns and we flagged those with the union. That's why I was told, but they were different queries to what the Ospreys and Scarlets had. But the fact of the matter is, I fully understand why the Scarlets and Ospreys are taking a stance on this. It is a conflict of interest, just as it was when Dragons were under union ownership. And we need to make sure we don't have those same issues that we had under Dragons, where there's all sorts of accusations going around. There has to be transparency, and we need all 4 teams working off the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, again, that's why I think us being in a sort of sub company is gonna at least help with that transparency. The other thing I would like to say is, because I appreciate the position I'm in, I know full well that they would be the same sort of fans who are sort of defending Cardiff, say, oh no, we're not going to get any better, were the same ones who were criticising the Dragons, and if it was one of the other 2, they'd do the same. I get it, there are dickheads in Cardiff, in the Cardiff fan base, there are dickheads in all of them. 3 of them speak on this pod regularly. I do get it, and I do get where Trump, because frankly I don't trust the WRU as far as I can throw them either. And to be honest, their reputation over the last decade or so has it, that's what's it they've earned. They're reaping what they sow now. The only thing I could say is, again, our hands are tied. We had WRU employees who are our board, so we were always going to sign. Yeah. But as far as I say, I'm more worried that they're going to actually actively underfund us to try and save money there that they have to pay.
The Welsh Leinster accusations, and again, I spoke about this last night, I just don't buy into it for several reasons. First of all, Welsh Rugby hasn't got the money or the the resources to make Cardiff into Leinster. And people forget, yeah, money is a big part of Leinster, but it's the system that underpins Leinster. Obviously, you know, the schools, the private schools, the academies, etc. Right. Second of all, it's already a conflict of interest, Cardiff being under union ownership. It would be a huge conflict of interest if Cardiff put all their resources into Cardiff. It's not right, and it's just going to cause further chaos down the line. So I'm not entirely convinced that the WRU, like some supporters are saying out west, they want to turn them into the Welsh version of Leinster. However, the union are going to try and make Cardiff successful. They are going to try and make them desirable because they want them back in private ownership. And as simple as that, they need to make Cardiff attractive to owners. And the reason they do that is you make them attractive and you make them successful. So I get it, but they will have to be careful how they go about it.
I don't know what people's problem is with making them into Leinster. I mean, we took those boys apart quite comfortably. You bring on anytime you want, boys. You know, right?
I mean, you're spoiling my review of the game, but basically, I've said we are, especially with the SRC as well. We definitely are the Welsh Leinster because we cock up when it matters most.
Right. Let's move on. Before we move on to proper rugby stuff, if you are liking what you're seeing and hearing, do give us a like and a share on social media and follow us and subscribe on YouTube. It makes a big difference to us. You get to see all the other pods that are around as well, and there are plenty of them. There are 9 in the family at present, and probably more to come over the summer. Don't tell the wife. Don't tell the wife. That's why I'm stepping away from the pods. So I'm spending less time doing the pod. Chances are there's at least one coming over the summer. Okay, so let's move on then to rugby. So obviously all 4 sides in South Africa, one big plane, and lots of people flapping wings to get us all down there. It does kind of, it seems a bit weird, everybody not traveling together. Do you know what I mean? All going on separate planes and different times and what have you. But there we go. So Friday night, Sharks v Ospreys kicked us off. So Jack, your thoughts on that game and where that leaves you now?
Season's over. We can move on, right? No. Disappointing. It was always going to be a hard game. But I thought that you know, just physically they were really put to the sword a bit. I felt like the aerial game was where it was won and lost as well. So all the game was kind of played, you know, in the right areas of the pitch. I think that if you looked at the physicality coming from the South Africans, it's just insane. It's just like the size of the men that they have coming onto the pitch. You know, Eben Smith went off and you're thinking, oh, that's good. And then they bring on another 7-foot player. And I think it was midway through the second half, Jack Morgan got in a bit of a tussle and he was with his opposite number 7. He was towering over him. And it was just one of those where I think that the physicality of the game, you know, in the first half kind of showed in the last 20 minutes of the second half, and everything looked very tired. But having said that, I thought that a few passes here, a few bit more pieces of luck could have seen, you know, the Ospreys have a better scoreline in the first half. You know, Kieran Hardy's run just knocked it on. Morgan Morse made a break and then offloaded to nobody again. Which is something needs to work on. But like these little moments that, like, if that offload had gone to hand, you through, you know, if he hadn't lost the ball and scored a try, so it would have looked a lot different. But in the end, I think just like kind of they were out muscled, and the game was played in, like, you know, mostly in their half due to a really good kicking strategy. So yeah, all in all, quite disappointing in those terms. But it was always going to be a tough task, and they've been looking tired for weeks now, the Ospreys. And I think the last thing they needed was a trip out to South Africa to tackle a load of 17-foot, 180. It's just insane. But yeah, you don't want to be too critical though. I thought the front row went well. I thought the scrum was actually surprisingly good. Dewi got tackled into touch by a winger, which I'm sure he's not going to want to see again anytime soon. But in general, yeah, just another one of those kind of like games where a few passes here, a few touches there, and maybe you could have seen a different result. But in general, season's over now, which is disappointing. But yeah, that was kind of my take on it, really. I don't want to be too negative, but yeah.
I actually want to hop in because I actually do disagree with Jack to an extent, because I actually thought they stood up to the physicality quite well for pretty much the whole game. But the thing for me is just looking at as always with me, it was the attack and like how the last few details. So you talk about Morgan Morse making the breakthrough for the offload, and there wasn't the support runner there to go through. And it just makes me wonder, what would have it, I mean, hindsight's 2020, but imagine if Mark had the full preseason to have this attacking game plan in place. And it just makes me, it just goes back to that decision to try and keep Toby Booth on for the extra season. And it's just, the what could have been.
Yeah, I guess I'm more with the physicality. I think it was more like in the 22. When they got into the Ospreys 22, it was fast ball, and that's when you really saw that like kind of power coming through. And then they kind of got there through the kicking strategy, right, which was aim for Keelan Giles and then get like every single person who was over 6'5" to stand around him, which is half the team. But yeah. It does make you wonder about that decision to keep Toby Booth on. It does really make you consider maybe it would be better to get that done a little earlier. But it is what it is. And all in all, you don't want to be too down on it. I don't think it was the worst season. Actually, it's been pretty good in the middle part. So yeah.
Okay, we're it's hard, isn't it? You don't want to kind of, it's not sticking the boot in, but yeah, it's disappointing to finish the season going into the last game with nothing to play for, where most of us were last year. Was like last year you guys pulled it out the bag on the last day of the season. So yeah, it's I feel your pain. I'd like to have sympathy, but yeah, you should know better than that by now, mate.
I think on my first appearance on the podcast, I said they'd finish 9th. So they're playing for that. I might send them an email and be, look, I need some credibility. I'm new to this.
We'll pull this one out the bag, Jack. Right. Harley. No, I'm going to enjoy listening to this one. What's your excuses for the Bulls this week, mate? What's the excuse?
I don't think they got off the plane. It's just. I mean, let's get the elephant out of the room. Conceding 38 unanswered points over 50 minutes is just inexcusable. It just is. I know the Bulls are a fantastic side. They were gunning to get secure second position in the URC, so they've got home quarterfinal and semi, but just completely outplayed the bits of defense which have been going well so far. I don't know if we had too much of a sense of self-confidence after playing Ospreys and Munster, and then just got very much beaten up by another pack. And then the sad thing is we still really should have gotten a Troy bonus point with it, because actually in that second half attack was, it started clicking. Once we finally got hold of the ball, I think when they look back on the tapes today, I think Gabe Hamerwood's going to rue that absolute hospital pass to Cam when there was a 2-on-1 and he was certain to go in the corner, because that would have gotten us that point. And then there we got outkicked. Willie Rue, absolute masterclass as per. I mean, he's still one of the best fullbacks out there. Cameron Heineken just runs through brick walls. I mean, there's a reason why Wales Online were absolutely desperate that you decide to be Welsh for reasons. And as I said, there's just not a lot to say. We sort of put a sort of first and a half team out, and it just wasn't quite enough. I think best team is to be. He's had almost no opportunities all season, and they give him a half against the Bulls in altitude. It screwed him over a bit there. And then literally every single other result went the way we didn't want it to go for the season. And then after that point, you're just like, So we've gone from an 88% chance of making the playoff to what, maybe an 8% chance now. So we have to beat the Stormers, who've decided now is the time for them to remember that they're full of world-class players.
So your excuse is that it was everybody else's fault then?
No, it was our fault for not getting anywhere near. We were never going to get too near the Bulls, but like we should have picked up a point. We didn't. And then just games you didn't expect. Like, who'd have expected Glasgow to lose to Benetton? Benetton have been absolute hat stand all season. And then they've decided to throw it in because they've decided they want to play they want to play Leinster in the semis, not one of the South African sides, so they're trying to get the fourth spot. And and then Edinburgh beat Connacht because again Connacht hat stand all season. It does show how mad this season's been for that middle sort of 6 to 10 teams. And yeah, we just got screwed. I mean, Scarlets didn't even do their job and lose to the Lions. I mean,
disgraceful, wasn't it? Absolutely disgraceful.
Playing Turks, they just like making life difficult for us. That's all.
Yeah, it's a vendetta, mate. Jamie, next off the rank was Stormers and Dragons. Pretty much, pick a report from the season and just change the names, really, wouldn't it? It was nothing really any different.
Yeah, I mean, result as expected. Although I will say, I don't think that scoreline tells the full story. I actually think it's quite harsh on the Dragons because Dragons were actually very competitive for large parts of that game. It was only 7-0 approaching half time. And then in the later stages, it was only 29-12. But then, of course, we conceded 3 tries in the last 8 minutes and we were blowing out our asses by then. We were knackered. So, unfortunately, those 3 late tries made the scoreline look very, very ugly. But I don't actually think the Stormers were that good, to be honest. I actually thought we did a decent job in frustrating the Stormers. But look, we knew it was going to be tough. The set piece was a disaster. The scrum went backwards on roller skates, 63% scrum success. The line out was only 50%. Brodie Coughlin, who has been very reliable with his arrows, unfortunately had a bad day throwing in. It is worth remembering, and this is not an excuse, but I think we have to remember this is nowhere near Dragons' full strength team. This is a largely young and inexperienced squad. So we had 19 players missing for this one. Rodri Jones pulled out just before kickoff. So that meant we had to bring in Dylan Keller-Griffiths in. And we had to put Owain James, Wales under-20s prop, on the bench. It's really not ideal when you're having to play kids in the front 5 when you come up against a massive South African pack, but that's just where the Dragons are, unfortunately. And then we had Dan Lydiot leaving the field to a head injury in the 27th minute, possibly meaning it's the final game of his remarkable career. If it is, that's a very sad and disappointing way to end what's been a phenomenal career. He is going through the protocols this week. They are hoping he'll be available for the Bulls, but I don't know. I don't know if he'll make it, but if he doesn't, I think that's quite sad, to be honest. But look, it was a tough night for a young, inexperienced Dragons team, and they've got another damage limitation job against the Bulls, which I really don't want to be thinking about right now. But there were some positives to take from that performance. It was gritty defense at times, but unfortunately it was the same old story. The fundamentals let them down again, unforced errors, fitness issues. We're always struggling in the last quarter of an hour's game for our fitness. And the sooner this season ends, the better for everyone, I think, because it's been a horrible, horrible season.
I've been saying that since Christmas, mate. You've been saying, can the season end now? Since
Well, it did end, didn't it? And let's be honest, around that time, it did end. That first block when I've spoken about it so many times, but the Dragons were competitive. People forget that. There's so many games. Quite easily, the Dragons could have won 0 because they were lucky to beat the Ospreys, right? But on the other hand, we could have won 6. We could have easily beaten the Bulls and Sharks. We should have beaten Cardiff. We should have beaten Ulster. We should have beaten Scarlets. But we haven't taken those opportunities. And it's our own fault because we don't help ourselves. So if I'm sat here saying we've won 6 games this season, it's a very different story, isn't it? I think that's a successful season for the Dragons. But it's not. Instead, we've lost 15 on the bounce, 1 win in the league, just 1 win in Europe. It's the worst ever Dragon season. And even by Dragon standards, it's been absolutely horrible. But there's just 1 more game to go, and that'll be it. And next year, it'll be a new look squad, a lot of new signings. So we can only hope that things improve because, quite frankly, it can't get any worse than this. It simply can't get any worse than this.
Okay. Cool. So then we peaked at the end of the weekend with a Sunday game, which nobody likes a Sunday game. So John, talk me through Lions Scarlets and just how enjoyable that game was for you.
Oh, at the risk of gloating on my debut, I apologise in advance. But if the Ospreys were victims to a shark attack, Cardiff ran with the Bulls and failed miserably. The Dragons were caught in a stormer, and Scarlets sent the Lions the way of Mufasa. And to be fair, after the Lions announcement and no Scarlets player in there for 40 plus years, I think it was just their way of saying, well, this is what we think of the Lions. But no, it was a good game. I mean, I was having a dart between TVs in the pub because Cardigan were playing on one of the other screens as well, and we'll ignore that. But you know, I think the sort of yellow card for Luisi was unfair, but you know, Blair Murray was really stand out with his tries, and I think it was just sort of saying, well, this is what I could do. But the offside decision for the Lions try and that sort of carding wasn't really fair. The drop goal was class, it has to be said. Any other time that would have gone anywhere in the stadium. But yeah, all of the tries were just, I mean, it was a joy to watch, let's be honest. Well, unless you're a Cardiff supporter. But yeah, I rather enjoyed it. And
John is throwing a lot of shade at Cardiff, isn't he? I've noticed this. Harley's sitting there biting his tongue, I'm sure. But you're throwing a lot of shade at Cardiff.
yeah, and next time round it'll be coming right back at me. But for this week, you know, we didn't let the side down. We at least came out of South Africa with one win.
First ever win in South Africa for the Scarlets.
Yeah, first ever win in South Africa. We've beaten a couple of South Africans at home. I mean,
Let us
Yeah,
know
but
when
what
you
time
play
to do
South
it?
African side at home.
there was a bit where it was 10 minutes or 15 minutes ago where they'd come back and they were 2 points behind. And I'm like, I messaged the boys and I said, we're going to lose this. It's not just nothing was going right. We'd made 4 clean breaks and ballsed up all 4 of them. Johnny Williams was on the end of 2 of them, literally standing there in empty space. Joe Roberts had a fantastic game and he's got 3 men inside him. Easy pass, nobody there, run into the posts. This is lovely. No, I'm going to try and flick one over the top of the 6'6" attacker that's standing there. It just begged belief how difficult we made it for ourselves. Literally 4 try scoring opportunities before we went, let's just give it to Fafita. Let's give it to Fafita. He knows what he's doing. Flip it inside. There we go. And it was away. Yeah, for me, we made that game harder than it actually needed to be. But Costello, superb. Or at 9, if you saw the guy that went down on him, he went down on him with not intentionally, went down on him with his elbow into his ribs, and he was a 18-stone prop. So I'm not surprised that he's on his way home. And I thought Johnny Williams was outstanding all weekend, and still hasn't signed a contract with the Scarlets for next year
yet.
I'm just in that bit of going like, where? Who's holding out? Is it him holding out, or is it the Scarlets holding out? Do you know what I mean?
It did get a bit squeaky, but I will grant you.
Say again, John. So, go on, mate. Say that.
It did get a little bit sort of squeaky bum, I will grant you, and sort of the amount of sort of bandages that were being used as well. A few head knocks here and there, and you start thinking, are they possibly giving a bit too much?
Well,
Especially with one more game to go and still the playoffs beckon.
There was one point we had 5 players down on the pitch needing treatment. That's 33% of your team off your feet on a pitch. So yeah, fair play. It was.
Can I just make a very quick point about Feia Fifita? Because I did watch this game and I did enjoy it. So any other club giving a 34-year-old guy a 4-year deal is absolutely bonkers, right? It's just not good business sense. However, because it's Feia Fifita, and you watched him on Sunday doing what he did, you think, okay, now I know why Scarlets are paying the big bucks and giving a 34-year-old a 4-year deal. He's just outstanding, isn't he? He is absolute quality. He is one of the best overseas signings in Welsh rugby, up there with Ray Lilo and other guys. Outstanding. Lousy is good as well, but he is a penalty machine. Let's be honest about that. But Feia Fifita, I can understand now why Scarlets give this guy a 4-year deal. I thought he was terrific. I don't think they win that game actually without Fifita. I don't.
I think when Joe Roberts went off injured, I think Fifita filled in at centre.
He was amazing. Absolutely,
I genuinely do. I think he was. Yeah, I think he was there and doing more in attack than pretty much anyone else. Did you see one quick point? Did you see our penalty move? That weird penalty move.
Oh yes.
Inside their 5, it taps, and then we lift the second.
Yes.
I think it was Plumtree that we lifted, and he's like, with the line is like 4 yards that way, boys. But he's lifted. Interesting. I've seen it. It was on like a South African schoolboy game as well. Didn't quite work, but interesting. Good to see thinking on the feet.
Did you watch it on S4C?
Yeah.
The game. So on English language, so it was Gareth Rees Owen and it was Richie Rees. Now I have to be honest, Richie Rees, I do find his commentary at times quite grating, but there was one really funny moment because they kept cutting to Dwayne Peel a lot, didn't they, in the coach's box? And there was one moment where he smiled. Now I thought he had wind, but he was generally happy, right? And Gareth Rees Owen says to Richie Rees, "Oh, Dwayne Peel's smiling. Have you seen him smile before?" And Richie Rees, to be fair, was quite funny. He went, "Yeah, 1999. Which I thought was really funny. So it was a good win, very entertaining game, and I think Scarlets they deserve that, and they're in a very good position to qualify now for the top 8. But that just shows good recruitment. That's what the Scarlets have done. They've recruited really good overseas signings. Bringing Lee Jones in, I don't think enough people are talking about this. Bringing Lee Jones in to work alongside Dwayne Peel, it's been a big plus point, and also having Jared Payne to defense, not attack now. It's been a massive plus point because their defense is so much better this season. And that's enough. I'm going to talk about Scarlets now. They've had enough praise from me.
Okay. What I will say is the stats are out for this week, and if you think we play wild attacking creative rugby, you look at the stats and you go, no, we don't. We kick the most, we defend the most.
Who cares if you win? Don't matter, does it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Also,
Right.
kicking in defence is how you get to play the weird, funky, sexy rugby because you've got the broken field. That's why teams play like that.
Quality,
which I keep trying to tell you, Lee, even though you still think that you have to have the ball to do something magic with it. I
like sexy rugby from your own 22, where you get some smart ass honking it from the halfway line and going, "Look at me, look how amazing I am." Just the way I was brought up, mate. Right, let's have a look at previews for this weekend's games then. So realistically, only Cardiff and Scarlets still in the hunt. I think technically Ospreys are out of it, aren't they? There isn't a scenario where you can come in. And same with Dragons. Obviously, Dragons are building towards next year. So Friday night then, Harley, we start with Cardiff against the Stormers. So thoughts, expectations, and I'm just going to see where you are now. So Stormers are in 5th. on 50 points. You're in
We're in
ninth
ninth.
on 46. So you could, bonus point win, overtake them.
Yeah. And to be honest, that's the only way we're going to make the playoffs, is by beating them, because the other criteria is we've got to score get two more. Also, I think we need to get one more point than the loser of Munster and Benetton, but also Edinburgh need to fail to beat Ulster at home, which, given, as I said, most teams are hat stand. I don't think Edinburgh's that hat stand yet, and Ulster they look resigned to their bottom half of the table finish. As I said, Stormers have been pretty shaky for the first half of this season. They've had a lot of clear run of injuries. All their top players are performing. Willemse, Feinberg and Mazulu, they're playing extra. I think spurred on by return of Brock Harris as well, so sort of help some of those things. But they're just a very good, they're a side that can do lots of very sexy rugby. They have made the least tackles in the URC, is something I found in the stats pack, which is an interesting one. So it just says that they tend to have the ball more often than not. I'll be honest, we started off thinking, right, 2 points from these guys would be great, and then all results have gone against. And I just don't see a win coming from Cardiff. I feel like it's stretched too far. I mean, maybe with a full strength squad, we might be able to do something against them, but I'm not seeing it. I just feel like Cardiff are in that position now where we either squeak by in a win or we lose by quite a lot. And I think that's where we're going this time.
So squeak by or lose by a lot. Was that?
No, that is, if you look at our score lines, that's what we've done all season. We've either squeaked by a team or we've got absolutely hammered.
Okay. And you're expecting one of those two to happen this weekend?
Well, I'm expecting the hammered.
Okay, fair enough. So that game is the only game on BBC on Friday night. What time?
6 o'clock kickoff for this one.
That's
so it's
UK
the same slot
6
Ospreys were in
yeah.
last weekend.
Yeah, that's it. It is a
6
weird one.
UK, 6 p.m. UK time.
Yeah. Okay. So next up, then we've got Bulls and Dragons, Jamie, on Saturday at 2 p.m. This one's on S4C. Any comments on the game?
I think we all know what's going to happen here. We saw Leinster put 76 points on Zebra on the weekend. And honestly, it could get that very same scoreline could happen. This could easily be a 70, 80 pointer because of the injuries Dragons got, because of the kids, because of the difference in quality. We all saw what the Bulls did to Cardiff. They smothered them. That scoreline doesn't actually represent how good the Bulls were, because they actually destroyed Cardiff for like 60 minutes and then they took the foot off the gas, made replacements, and Cardiff scored some very nice tries. They're terrifying. They're so powerful, and it must be so demoralizing for these players knowing there's nothing they can do to stop it. There is nothing the Dragons can do to contain that power. And we could quite easily see a record defeat in the URC this weekend. Not that it actually matters because the season's done now. It's not going to make any difference. But the only hope Dragons have got is they just need to keep the scoreline down as much as possible. But I just don't think they can do it against this Bulls team. There is some talk about John Dobson rotating. Not John Dobson, that's not their coach, Jake White, sorry. There is it's Sutton Storm, isn't he? Jake White, there's been some talk about him rotating the Bulls team. I think that's for the best. I think they need to rest all the Springbok players. Don't risk them against the Dragons. There's no point. They could probably put out a C team and still comfortably beat this Dragons team. So, yeah, it's another damage limitation exercise. It could get very, very ugly. But again, that's just where the Dragons are right now. So they're going to have to take their medicine and look forward and start building for next season.
I feel like, as I joked with the Stormers fan earlier today, can you please put out your Curry Cup side?
Yes, please. They need to make as many changes as possible. Don't risk it. They got big games coming up.
The game for Stormers. I mean, you're probably going to finish 5th anyway, so you're going to be playing Sharks or Glasgow. In fact, if anything, you want to go down to 6th because I reckon Sharks are going to overtake Glasgow. So, just that's just a plea from me to Dobbo. You don't need to go too hard on this one.
Okay. So next up then, Jack, is Lions and Ospreys. Yours is at 4:15 again on S4. So S4C have got 3 games on Saturday, 2:00, 4:15, 6:30. So Lions, Ospreys, you've seen that they're beatable. We've given you the blueprint on how to beat them. Chances of that happening on Saturday?
It's hard to tell, isn't it? Just because it's a dead rubber game, end of season. You know, you never know how people are feeling, or how they're going to approach it. But I think it should be quite a fun game, actually. If you put the Ospreys attack up against the Lions attack, Lions attack, I think I was just looking at it earlier today. They've got the 4th best attack in the league in terms of meters made, and defenders beaten, but they're 13th for tries scored and points, which seems mad. But so they like to play, they like to play rugby, like to go wide a lot, and the Ospreys like to play as well, like to throw the ball around. So it should make for an interesting game, particularly when you consider that they're 12th in the league for defense. They've got the first most turnovers won, second most turnovers lost in the league, which is a weird one. So you'd like to think that should be a fun game of rugby where the ball gets thrown around and we see a lot of creativity and so on. Because it doesn't really mean much now. I mean, a second win out in South Africa, ever for the Ospreys would be nice to see. So that's something to play for. And obviously my 9th place prediction, which I think is incredibly important, and I'm sure they will as well when they get the 3-page email. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to know how mentally the players are going to feel. Out in South Africa, flown all the way there, playing a game that outside of wanting to win doesn't really mean much. So yeah, I think the Ospreys can win. I don't see why not. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to. It's just a question of how the game is approached, and if those passes start sticking in attack, if they start getting the sport runners right and so on. I think, yeah. So we'll see. One last hurrah for the season, and it would be nice to see them win, because I think that Mark Jones has done such a good job since he's come in. The way the last few weeks have gone has been rather disappointing. So to end on a high with a good win out in South Africa, I think would be quite a nice thing for the team to end on going into next season. So yeah, we shall see.
Can you imagine the after match party, the after match drinks for end of season out in South Africa, and you just pull off your second win? Yeah, that would get messy. It would be very, very messy, very, very quickly. What I will say for Ospreys is we think and we believe that so Harley's just messaged me and said Ospreys can't make 9th, mate.
Oh, really?
He just ruined his night.
So Ospreys are currently on 38 points. Edinburgh, who are 10th, are on 44. Cardiff on 9th are on 46. So the max you can get, unless you hoping they'll bring in a Super Rugby style super bonus point,
that's
max you can get is 43.
You've pissed on his chips now.
Yeah. That's a double hit to my credibility. That is a double hit to my credit. Number one, I didn't know they couldn't finish 9th. Number two, I predicted them.
And also, if Lions beat you, they knock you down one again. Because they'll overtake you with a win.
You know what? Well, there we go.
Who says Cardiff fans enjoy the misery of Ospreys fans?
I've been fairly positive about Cardiff all night, right? And here I am getting absolute counters. Brilliant.
And Harley's just laying the boots in.
You just don't get the vibe of this podcast at all, Jack.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get it.
Right. I've forgotten what I was saying then. So let's move on to Sharks and Scarlets. So, John, I mean, we were literally held together with bits of plastic at the end of that game. I remember what I was going to say. I think Jack Morgan won't be playing this weekend. I think quite rightly he's been wrapped up ready for Lions duty. And I think we'd all agree that that's the right decision to make.
Absolutely.
Somebody somewhere on social media will complain about it. Guarantee it. But yeah, I think.
Do you want to talk about the Lions later? Because we haven't mentioned it.
Oh, we didn't mention it, did we?
We can do it after
we'll
this
do
if
it
you
now.
want.
Jack Morgan
Yeah,
is the only representative from any of the Welsh regions to make the Lions tour. Congratulations to him. And
There
him
we
and
go.
Thomas
That's-
Williams keep a very proud tradition of a Welsh representative being at 9 and back row for like
Forever.
20 consecutive tours or something.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Sharks and Scarlets. John, your expectations for this one? I mean, there's a lot to play for, but you're playing for it against the Sharks.
There is, and let's be honest, it's Scarlets now to lose. You know, we're sitting sixth place at the moment, and yeah, we came out of Sunday battered and bruised, but I think there's every chance, and I've got a feeling it will be a let's throw everything at it, especially if we've lost Gareth. And you know, the Ospreys, I think the score against the Ospreys didn't actually give how much of a run around the Ospreys gave the Sharks. So if that's the case, I think there's every chance.
It's hard though. It's gonna be bloody hard. I mean, they could take off pretty much half of that first team that they put out last weekend, and still put a full South African internationals. They could replace them with internationals. I think they've got that many.
They don't make
So-
sense,
I mean-
though, the Sharks today. They do not make sense. You look at their squad, right? It is packed with Springboks, so much quality and talent, and yet they are never convincing. They look so average with so many world-class players. They do not make sense, the Sharks, at all. It's a winnable game, but I do question now the loss of Gareth Davis. I think that's a massive blow to the Scarlets. And suddenly, I did think, well, we'll come on to predictions maybe later. Suddenly, I was confident of a Scarlets win. No Gareth Davis makes me very sceptical now.
I
mean,
think
it
exactly
was-
the same boat. I didn't
As
put my
was just
predictions
pointed
in
out
until
to me-
that news.
Sorry.
Go on, John.
That
Go
was
on.
all I was saying. Was that when I heard Gareth Davis win, I flipped from a Scarlets win to an Ospreys to a Sharks win, because I think Gareth Davis has been that important to you this season.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
I mean, as was pointed out to me, Oxney is sort of one of the best props in the world, and he's playing for the Sharks. So, you know, he's a 3-year contract as well. As I say, I'm not saying it's going to be a walk in the park, and Scarlets are really going to have to fight for every point, but I still think they can do it. Eternal optimist, me.
Well, if you look at where we are in the table, right, we're in sixth on 48 points. Technically, we could finish on 53. Yeah, 53 points. That would still only put us in fifth. However, below us, everyone from 10th would technically overtake us. And that's just a scary way to... We could drop from 6th to probably 9th, 10th. Jack's prediction could be right just for the wrong team. We could end up in 9th and Jack would be going, see, I told you, I was on the wrong pod. That's all it was. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I mean, yes, someone will be 9th. That is I don't think that's a particularly savant prediction. The team that will be 9th, probably Cardiff.
I completely disagree. That's not a good prediction.
Right. Okay. So talking about predictions, so we're going to do prediction league in a minute, but I'm going to give you two, Jack, John, chance to just throw your hat into the ring for the last week and give us some predictions for the weekend. So, Harley, have you got the games in front of you so you can run down them just in case I cock it up?
Yeah. So we'll start with John, just because his name's first on the spreadsheet I've put on. For no reason other than he logged on first. So can you give me your so basically just a score margin prediction for first Stormers versus Cardiff, then Bulls, Dragons, Lions, Ospreys, Sharks versus Scarlets, please.
Okay, well, after all the shade I threw on you earlier, Stormers Cardiff. I'm saying Cardiff by 3 points. It's going to be a close game, I think. And, you know, you had the drubbing last week, so this week will be the squeaky win. Bulls Dragons, I apologise in advance, but
Don't have to apologise. Just give your score.
fair enough.
Don't apologise. I hate it when people say, "I'm sorry." No, just say your bastard score. Go on, make your words. Do your worst, because that's a point I really don't care.
My worst, and it's still being sort of erring on the side of caution. I think Bulls by 80 points. I think it's going to be an absolute bloodbath.
Okay.
I don't know. They get tied in Victoria as well.
A winning margin of 80 points, you're saying?
I think you could be looking at close to that. Yes.
Oh, that's going on socials this week.
Right, Lions
That's
versus
me,
your
dude.
nearest and dearest Ospreys.
Right, Lions, Ospreys. I think Ospreys could do it, and I've put them down as a scores difference, so 7 points.
7 to the
I
Ospreys,
think.
and then
Sharks,
Sharks,
Scarlets, as I say, eternal optimist. I'm giving it to the Scarlets 12 points. All or nothing. Because, as was pointed out, we could drop to 9th place. Don't really want to rely on other teams' scores to get us into the playoffs, so we've got to go for it.
Not even I'm that
Right.
optimistic, boys.
right, Jack.
Did I?
So again, order Stormers Cardiff, Bulls Dragons, Lions Ospreys, and then Sharks Scarlets.
So I'm gonna go with Stormers to win, probably by about 10, I would say. Just because winning in South Africa is really, really hard. Like, if you look at it statistically speaking, like, it doesn't happen that often. People don't go out there and win that often. So...
Cardiff got good record in South Africa, though.
Yeah,
they
got the best of the four.
We've played them out there.
True.
They are good in South Africa.
Yeah,
and maybe that's usually because they don't play their box.
I think the Bulls and Dragons, Bulls by about 30, I would say.
Well, that's lower than I anticipated.
I think I'll go through them, but I think that's one of the kindest ones.
Yeah, I just think that I'm not sure the Bulls would. It depends what team they put out, but if they do change people around, which I suspect they will, then I don't think. Yeah, we'll see. But by 30, I'm trying to be nice. Jamie's not had a go at me at this podcast today, so there we go. Ospreys, Lions, Ospreys by 7 as well, I'd say. I think the Ospreys can win that one. And then Scarlets, Sharks. I agree, they're not convincing, but then, like, all of a sudden, one of their many stars will do something good, and then they'll score. Like, it's almost like you're watching, like, a team where, like, individual kind of brilliance in the end is what comes through. So I still think the Sharks probably win by 7 in that game as well. So those are my predictions.
Okay. So what we're going to do now, okay, is because our prediction league is getting really, really squeaky bum time now, and we're down to the final game of the season. So, I mean, some people were accusing me on social media of just picking whatever Jamie's score was and going one either side of it.
I knew exactly what you was doing.
And if I had to give it's what you were doing.
If I had to give my predictions tonight, I would have gone last. Stop you copying me, you fucker, because I knew exactly what you did. I wasn't born yesterday, boy. I know what you did.
You're doing it for like 6 weeks, Jamie, and you only.
And it was pointed out by a lot of people. Say, "Lee's take the piss out." You say, "No, wait till I see him, the twat."
All right. Anyway, I'm going to introduce this. So I'm going to explain just how close it was, and then we'll say what we've done for this weekend to make it a bit different. So, after a very competitive round, in 4th place, Nick on 131. Then it's me on 140, and then Jamie and Leah tied on 141 each. So, I'm poised. They're ready. And basically, because it's so close, we've decided that we've all sent our predictions to Dan. So, you know, who's coming up, maybe going on to the take over from the Dragons from Jamie next season. And he has sent me all. So I sent mine in first, and then he sent me everyone else's predictions. So that includes Nick, who's out in South Africa. So everyone knows what they've predicted. I know what I'm the only one who knows what everyone's predicted, but it's all been put on. So Dan's going to comment on all the socials if I've changed mine, which I haven't. But if I have, he's going to let everyone know that I've cheated. So we're going to go with our exalted leader Lee with his predictions. So he's predicted Cardiff by 5, Bulls by 25, which spoiler
Very
is
kind.
the lowest points margin for the Bulls.
That's kind, yeah.
Lions by 2, and his personal favourite of Scarlets by 1.
Oh, what a surprise. Didn't see that one coming.
You know what?
Fucking hell.
I rewrote that one about 6 times. I was looking at how close we were, and I was going, shall I go for it? Shall I give a genuine one? No, we'll just go Scarlets.
Isn't
by
it a
one.
shame, though,
That's what
Lee?
we do.
Isn't it a shame we've had to do it this way? Submit our predictions to another person, all because you're cheating, all because
I
you're
did
cowardly
cheat.
cheat, and we've had to do this way. Isn't it sad?
It was
What a
not
loser.
cheating. It was
Come on.
you.
Oh, sorry, this has just
brain
reminded me of the
mates,
come down with me meme.
Oh yeah.
These are
What a
cheats.
sad
That's
little
what
life, Lee.
Sad little life.
I hope you're happy.
Right, Jamie, as I said,
Jamie's
he's picked
getting
Cardiff
really
by
competitive now. This is coming down.
I don't
to
like
it.
cheaters, mate. That's all. I don't mind. I just don't like cheaters. I know what you did. So
Anyway, so
everyone knew what you did. Sorry,
if we can
Carly,
say
go on.
now, if I can get through Jamie's predictions, or I'm going to set them all to Dragons. Dragons win all the games. So he's predicted Cardiff by 3, Bulls by 58, which I thought was going to be the highest winning margin I said on this pod, but apparently it's not. Ospreys by 5 and Sharks by 7.
Very sensible predictions, I think.
Yeah, I think they're all about. I mean, so Nick has gone for Stormers by 10, Bulls by 30, Ospreys by 5, and Sharks by 12. And then myself, because I am the Cardiff fan, obviously I've picked an incredibly positive Cardiff score of Stormers by 12. Bulls by 45, and I did say when I messaged Dan, sorry. I know Jamie doesn't like apologising, but I apologise to Dan. And then I've gone for Ospreys by 2. So I said I think I would have changed that if I'd known the Jack Morgan news before, like, literally just came on air. And again, due to Gareth Davis, I've gone for Sharks by 5. So those predictions. Just so for anyone listening who's unaware, if there's a tie, as we have at the end of this round, it goes to how far off all your predictions are. And for that one, Jamie's far and ahead by about 100 points over Lee.
Jamie's
I hope it comes down to
destroying
points.
it.
I hope it comes down to points.
Jamie
I like to
the
win that way.
Scarlets are hoping for points difference here.
Yeah. Actually,
He's
let's hope it
getting
comes down to
really,
points.
really narky with it now. I love this. This is brilliant.
I just don't like cheaters, mate. That's all.
So, before we round up and say goodnight tonight, so next week, when the final tables are all done and what have you, you may have been with us. We did it pre-season, didn't we? Where we did our predictions, our end of season predictions, where we predicted who was going to finish where in the league and in the cup and all of that. I think we did it before the first game kicked off.
We did.
So
yes.
we've got them to review next week as well. And what I will say on them was, yeah, I think we were all drunk, high, whatever.
Well, you was on crack, I think, when you did your predictions. I don't know about the rest of us. The rest of us had sensible predictions.
So we'll have a look at them next week as well and just see how good we were at making predictions. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time again this evening. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, John. Thank you, Jack, for sitting in. It's been great to see you both. And we're nearly done with the season. We are genuinely getting to squeaky bum time. It could be anywhere between 5th and 6th and 9th and 10th. It comes down to the last weekend of the season. And that's the way it should be. And that's what makes this the best league in the world, as far as I'm concerned. So with that said, thank you very much, gents. I hope you enjoy your rugby. I shall see you next week. All the best.
That's